And when stars are in light, the weeper, we would know.
Hey everyone, happy, what is this, Tuesday, happy Tuesday. I get all my days mixed up. I guess depending on when you're watching this, it could be any day that ends with a Y. All right, so we have a jam-packed episode. This one is, I've received so many emails and text messages. I just got another text message right now about today's show because it's all about target drives. And we're going to dive into target drives really quick. If you're watching or wherever you're watching from, we always like to encourage you to check in, tell us where you are, where you're watching from today. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment box and we'll try to get to them. I know that there's a lot to cover here, so let me make a quick introduction to Alina McComas, who is a VP Senior Consultant at the Center for Sales Strategy and one of my colleagues and someone I work with all the time. So I'm excited that you're here, Alina. I'm going to give you a proper introduction. I printed up your bio, so here we go. Alina is known as a strategic thinker and problem solver. She's able to diagnose an organization and determine where process can be improved to maximize efficiency and performance. She uses her 20+ years of successful sales, management, and consulting experience to drive results for all of her clients. And I'll just add, her clients absolutely love her. As a digital subject matter expert, she has the ability to help the novice as well as the expert understand the ever-changing world of digital advertising sales. Her clients value her accessibility, her critical thinking, her willingness to jump in and help create solutions in response to their challenges and help them to produce results. When Alina is not working, you likely find her chasing around her young son, Shay. She's also an avid traveler who, and she always tells me this, but she loves driving in foreign countries, which is, I don't understand. And she's a graduate of Florida State University, a resident of Tampa, which makes her a huge Seminoles fan and a big Buccaneers fan as well. So she had a great football this past year. Football was very exciting for her. All right, let's jump into target drive. Hello, Alina.
Hi, Matt.
Okay.
Nice job.
Here we go. Ready? What is a target drive?
Okay, so very simply put, right? A target drive is a sales tactic that's designed to drive sales revenue. It's typically new revenue, but the target drive is not just about driving revenue. It's also about reinforcing the strategy of selling tailored solutions to high potential accounts. So most target drives that we help our clients with or that we execute are going to be somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks in length. And they can focus on driving total revenue or have a more narrow focus on a specific platform or category or product.
Got it. So a target drive is a tactic to drive revenue, but revenue is not the only thing that comes from a target drive.
Right.
So how is a target drive different than, let's just call it a sales contest? Because I hear people say, oh, you mean a sales contest? How are they different? What makes them different?
Right. So in my mind, a target drive is more strategic, right? Where sales contests will often focus on closing anything and everything that meets the criteria of a contest. A target drive is designed to focus on following a proven sales process to develop accounts that have the potential to be key accounts, right? It's about focusing on the type of business that can truly impact the bottom line of the station. I think another big difference between a target drive and a contest is that a target drive doesn't really need an incentive to be successful, where a contest always has an incentive tied to it, right? By virtue of it being a contest, there is a winner, right? And there are those that follow behind. And there's typically a large incentive for the person at the top of that pile, right? The person at the top. I've run a number of target drives over the years, probably 200 or 300 in my time with CSS, if not more. And over the years, those that incentivize one person with a financial incentive at the conclusion are not always more successful, right? Even when it's a pretty good incentive, I think I've had more successful drives from a participation and a revenue perspective, where the outcome is simply a certificate or a certification that everyone has the opportunity to earn when they participate, rather than having one winner with one large prize at the end.
Yeah, it strikes me the way you're describing this, that a target drive is really about reinforcing the good habits that we want people to have, right?
For sure.
We're not during a target drive, you're not asking someone to do something that they wouldn't normally be doing anyway. It's more just putting the focus on a process that works, and so that everyone watching this, either live or later, knows. I want to share a number that you shared with me right before we went on, because target drive revenue is real serious. I mean, we're talking about, in the last 3 or 4 years, over $100 million our clients have realized during target drives. And target accounts are typically, they're either brand new business or they're brand new budgets from current clients. For the most part, they're brand new business, but there's an asterisk from time to time. But we're talking about $100 million. We're not talking about this thing's going to help you generate $10,000, right? I mean, this is big time.
Yeah, I mean, if you are counting the business that you would already have, you're doing a target drive wrong, right? It is about finding those additional pockets of money and doing it the right way, right? Focusing on that process that is going to lead to long-term success, not just success in that 8 to 12 weeks where you're focused on it, and then your new business drops off the cliff afterwards, right? So you don't want kind of that just up and down that you're only performing when you're in a target drive.
Yeah, as one seller once said to me, shouldn't we always be in a target drive? Yes, right? All right, let me ask a question. So why would a sales manager or sales leadership say, you know what, we think we should do a target drive? I mean, what are they trying to solve?
Right. So, I think the most obvious reason and probably the one that we talk about the most is the revenue, right? We need to drive more new revenue. And so putting the focus on it, really putting the attention to the business that we're trying to drive, right? That's a big piece of it. And again, it's probably the number one reason. But I think the other reasons for doing a target drive, the things that I typically hear is, we need to have more new business activity and create better habits, as you just mentioned, around the new business efforts, right? So when I mentioned we do a target drive, that typical timeline is somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks. That's in part because new business and the type of new business that we're talking about takes time to develop, but it's also because we want to create better habits through the process on how we develop business. And so we do it for a longer period of time, not only to give them the opportunity to develop the business, but also develop the habits, right? It's about that consistent process and accountability throughout. I think the other reason that I will hear from a lot of sales teams on why we do a target drive, or one of those problems that we're trying to solve, is reinforcing the sales process, right? But a sales process, by definition, is that process that you go through that you know is going to give you a high probability of success. So it's about reinforcing the process that we go through to develop the right kinds of business. It's those habits, but also a target drive can give you a ton of insight into where the bottlenecks are, where the roadblocks are in your team, right? There's so many sales leaders that I speak to that just say, we just need to get more in pending, right? We need to get more in the funnel. We need to get more in pending. And, if your team is just putting activity in for the sake of activity, if you don't know where they're getting stuck in the process, right? You can put as much into pending as you want, but you're just going to end up with a fat middle of the pipeline as opposed to business that comes out at the end. So a target drive, because of the focus that we put on a target drive, how we track the target drive, can provide a lot of insight and very actionable coaching strategies on identifying where not only the team, but the individuals are struggling, and how you can help them improve the overall process so that the outcome is what you need.
All right, so let me summarize some things that you've said so far. It's a tactic to reinforce a strategy.
Yep.
It helps sellers to build better habits. It focuses on the process, not the product, but the process. It's not a contest, and it gives you insight into where the bottlenecks in your sales organization might be.
Yeah, for
all
sure.
True, correct? All right,
All
good.
true.
All right, so I think anyone watching, anyone who is a sales leader or responsible for revenue for the company that they work for is probably listening, watching, going, okay, I want to do this. This makes total sense. I want to do a target drive. So how do you do a target drive? What are the critical steps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's first planning, right? It's planning all of the details. And I was fortunate a couple years ago to see Billie Jean King speak. And one of the things that she said that just sticks with me is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And I'm pretty sure she's not the first person to say that. In fact, I know she isn't. But
she said it that day. That's
right. She is the one that I saw say it. So I give her credit for it, right? And she's pretty good at her craft. So I'll follow her, right? Planning is an essential component of executing a successful target drive. If you don't go through the process to plan all of the details before you begin, you're setting yourself up for a failure of an initiative, right? So you want to make sure that when this thing is rolled out to your sales team, that you've thought through all of the details, that everything is ready to go, that you can answer the questions that your salespeople are likely to ask, and share all those details, right? So when I plan a target drive, I usually have a long list of the details that we plan ahead of time so that there's smooth sailing, and we can really focus on the activity and the insights and the results throughout the target drive, and not going back and fumbling over the details, right? So that includes things like the easy ones, right? The timeline, which is, how long will the target drive be? What's the start date? What's the end date? What are the goals? I'm a firm believer that, when you run a target drive, you want to have individual goals as well as team goals. You want to make sure that each salesperson on the team understands what their responsibility is for the team as a whole to be successful. So you want to think about what's the individual goal, what's the team goal, what's your participation goal. You don't want a target drive where you hit a number, but it's off of the backs of, 10 or 20% of your sales team. You want everybody to be activated. You want everybody participating. I want teams to think through the theme, right? What's the thread that's going to hold it all together? And it should be something fun that keeps your team energized, that keeps them engaged over that time frame, whether it's 8 weeks or 12 weeks, right? So how will you tie that theme in? How do you keep it fun? How do you keep it energetic? You want to think about the focus of the drive, whether it's all new business from target accounts or if you're focusing on one specific platform. And once you have that focus, what's the criteria for what will count, right? So what will qualify towards the goal? If it's new, how are you defining new? If it's incremental, how are you defining incremental? Is it business that needs to run in the calendar year, right? So all of those little details, you want to think about the target accounts. Should you have a minimum that your AEs should focus on? Should you have a maximum? So you can't have less than 5 target accounts. We don't want you having more than 9. What's that range look like? Will there be an approval process, which is something that I always recommend, that managers must approve the target accounts, because you start with the wrong prospects, you're never going to get a great outcome. It's just time and energy wasted. So do the work up front to ensure your people are focusing on the right accounts. Talk about the role of the sales leaders in the market, right? Will there be one lead? Will everybody play a role? What will that role be? You want to talk about the PDA of the target drive, right? The public displays of achievement. Will there be any? If so, what will they be? When will they be awarded? Will you award that upstream activity that leads to the results? Will you only reward revenue? Will you reward both? That really ties into the problems that you're looking for the target drive to solve, and how you determine that. And then you want to think about the tracking, right? What are you going to track? What's the frequency at which you'll share it with the team? How will you share it with the team? And so once you have all of those details firmed up, then it's about having your kickoff meeting, right? And your goal should, again, it should be something that brings some fun, that generates some excitement with your sales team. You want to think about, do we incorporate some training, some tactical training that will help them throughout this initiative? But I think the fun and excitement in a kickoff meeting, whether it is in person or virtual, is really important. You want them to get excited. You don't want them to feel like this is just 5 minutes of a sales meeting, that you're rolling something out, that now I have something else I have to do, right? Create that fun and excitement. And then, during the target drive, it's about keeping an eye on the data. It's about checking in regularly with your account executives to drive accountability, make sure that everybody's on track. Looking at the data to identify as you're moving along, if somebody's getting stuck, don't wait till the end, right? Solve for those challenges as they come up, so that you can improve the overall end result. And once you have that end result, do a diagnostic. Don't let the data just sit there. Find out how to take what you've learned in this very focused drive. How do you take that insight and apply it to your individual sellers, not the team as a whole, but individually? How do you apply it to make each one of your people better long term?
Yeah, so often when we're brought in and to an organization that is attempting to do a target drive on their own, they've heard us talk about it, or they've seen us run one, and they're like, well, we're just going to go do this on our own. We know what we're doing, which, by the way, sometimes that works out absolutely fantastic. It's kind of like doing your own home improvement project, right? Sometimes it's fantastic, and sometimes you better. This
It's a
isn't
disaster.
TV, right? You can't redo your whole house in 30 minutes, and it looks great. But what we see is this: they have a start date, an end date. They tell everyone they need to sell something, and they track a goal, and that's all they do.
Right.
Well, what I do wrong? I mean, I said we're starting April 1st. We're going 10 weeks, and everyone's required to sell something, and we have a goal of this. And boy, all of those things are part of a target drive, but
Yeah.
they're just this much of a target drive compared to what you just explained. The other thing is that I just want to put a little emphasis on, and then I want to come back to you and talk to you about drilling down on what is it that you track and measure, because I think that's really important. But we see the pendulum swing from product focused to process focused in the line of work that you do and that we do, that I do. And sometimes, especially when revenue is not where we want it to be, the organizations we work with can accidentally swing a little bit too product focused.
Right.
That happens when business is down and we just need to get out there and get going. It also happens when we're introducing a lot of new cool things. So we're excited about it. So, now we're able to sell this. So everyone all of a sudden just wants to go out and sell that. And who could blame them? But it's all about the product. And Target Drive brings you back to process. It really does bring you back. So with that in mind, let's talk about what you track and measure, because I know it has to do with the process. So what do you recommend? What do we track and measure?
Yeah. So, and some of this is the benefit of running so many of these and seeing what works really well, right? But when the things that I will always recommend, and I think that most of us will recommend, is you want to track the activity. You want to track the key moments along the sales process. That's going to help you identify those bottlenecks, right? So I'm looking at, of the target accounts that they claim, how many do they actually get appointments with? Of those that they schedule an appointment, how many keep the appointment and they get a needs analysis, right? A strong needs analysis come out of it. Of those, how many move to a proposal? And of those proposals, how many close, right? So those key moments along the sales process, those are typically the moments that I recommend we track. You also want to look at pending business, because while it's not always about just putting more in the funnel and putting more in the funnel and putting more in the funnel, you need to make sure that you have enough in the funnel to get to where you're going, right? So if you know that your team closes 25% of the proposals that they have out there, you need to make sure that you've got 4 times your gap to the goal, what you're trying to achieve, in pending, or you're not going to have the opportunity to get there, right? So you need to make sure that you've got not only activity, the right kind of activity, and enough pending to give you the likelihood of success, right? To put you in the right position. And then you got to look at revenue, right? You have to look at what's the end result. How much did you actually close? And did everybody on your team contribute to the success of the team? Or did you have a couple of people that, rode on everybody else's shirt tails?
So the target drive, one of the things that and you've really led this. I mean, having done several hundred target drives, you have perspective, right? You have perspective of what is success and what is not success. You have perspective of what is a benchmark. Because if you're just doing this on your own, you might think that you're hitting home runs, but really you're just hitting singles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's important to know. So I have a couple of more questions for us today to talk about. Number one is, what causes a target drive to fail?
Okay. So there's 3 things. They're kind of the 3 most common culprits. One is planning to fail appropriately, right? It's starting a drive with really just figuring out, okay, we're going to start this day and end this day, and here's the number that we want to hit, right? And that's the thinking that's gone into it. So it's the lack of proper planning from the onset. That's That's one way. The other that I find probably more common than most is the lack of accountability and focus, right? There's too many bells going on, right? There's too many things that everybody is focused on, and nobody focuses just on the target drive, right? And that's a challenge for sales leaders because they don't have a shortage of things coming at them, and neither do the salespeople, right? So, but it is critical to the success that you have, fewer bells ringing, that you have someone who owns it, that you have someone that is driving the accountability for everybody to hit their responsibility, right? And so I usually refer to it when we talk about individual sellers as their responsibility for the team to be successful, not the goal, right? Because a goal has kind of this, like, it's got a different connotation to it. It's got a different feeling attached to it. But if I'm responsible, I don't want to let my team down. So my individual responsibility, right? And you need to hold them accountable to it. You need to have the focus to ensure that they're moving those accounts forward consistently over and over.
So if that's what causes it to fail, let's talk about the flip side and success. What sort of results, and this would be my last question, let's end on a real positive note. What sort of results should someone expect when they do a target drive?
It's really about how you plan, but the first and foremost is you should expect revenue, right? I mean, you should expect that you see an increase in revenue. And if you're doing a target drive right, you should see an increase in revenue that you're able to retain and grow over time. You should see large pieces of business close. It shouldn't be small pieces of revenue. It shouldn't be short-term deals, right? You should be looking for healthy business, not just any business. So you kind of alluded to this earlier, but since 2017, right, we've helped our clients generate close to $100 million in new revenue. This is not business that was renewal business or business that we would just get. This is new developed revenue, right? The revenue that the salespeople are 100% responsible for going and developing. And it averages to just under $250,000 per market. Right. And some of those, again, they'll vary whether they're 8 weeks or 12 weeks, but that's a pretty good number. I mean, we have a really good track record of driving results and exceeding the goals that we set out to achieve from the onset. Right. I go back to the other result that you should always look for is the data to develop coaching strategies. Right. You should have enough insight after a focused target drive. You should have insight to determine where each one of your salespeople are softest in the sales process, and to start developing a plan on how you can help them in the area where they struggle the most. Because if you can help them in that one area, just put focus on the area where they're softest, you see their entire process lift. Right. And then you can focus on the next softest and the next softest, but get an increase in performance where they're struggling most. And a target drive, by virtue of the focus and the tracking that we do, helps provide that insight. I think the last result that you can expect is healthier new business development, because we're focusing on the right types of accounts. We're focusing on closing larger deals. We're holding them accountable through the process. And you should see those habits, if you're doing it right, you should see those habits stick after the target drive is done.
Yeah, I mean, drive revenue, find the bottlenecks in your sales organization so you can help improve people, grow people, reinforce the best habits, and have a stronger pipeline. I mean, if you don't hear those things and that doesn't resonate with you, then I don't know. I don't know what else there is if you're improving sales performance. Alina, thank you so much for your time today. I know target drive is something that everyone always buzzes about and wants to know more information. We're going to put up how to get a hold of you with your LinkedIn. You can reach out to Alina at her LinkedIn account, connect with her. Feel free to ask her questions. Please remember, and someone made a comment down there, So this is live on LinkedIn, but it's also live on YouTube, and it is recorded on YouTube. So you can go watch it anytime. In fact, if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe, we would love it. We are trying to get as many people on our YouTube channel as possible. So please do that. If you like what you're seeing here, please share it. Next week, let me give a quick plug for next week. We're going to have a gentleman named Chad Littlefield. He's the co-founder of a company called We and Me. And what we're going to be talking about is running effective sales meetings in a work from home environment. And Chad is like the expert when it comes to this. So I'm excited for that. And I know you're gonna absolutely love it. Thank you everyone for your time. Enjoyed spending time with you, Alina, talking about target drives. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, Matt.
I've been told that the fire's old, and when stars are in light that we burn, we would know.